Hello and welcome to Sandy on Talent. Today, I'm so excited because we have Guy Schory with us. And, Guy, the first time that we met, which I believe was in Switzerland at
That's
the
right.
the Nord Anglia annual gathering, I was so struck by how generous a spirit you are. And I don't say that in a goofy kind of way. I mean it. Um, that we sat together, and it was almost like I felt like I had known you for. It was the oddest thing. I'm not odd, but wonderful. That I felt like I'd known you like forever, and the conversation was so easy and so on. And since then, we've had episodic kind of opportunities to connect. And anytime we connected, you always said, well, how can I help? What, what can I do? Is there anything I can do? And so on. And so I want you to know, I have really appreciated along the way, the opportunity to get to know you, but I feel like I've known you like forever. So welcome. And I'm so happy, for you to be with us today.
Thank you, Sandy. It's a real privilege and honor to be with you. And the feeling is completely mutual. And, sometimes you meet people that you just want to stay close with for the rest of your life. And, you rank very high on that bill.
When you think about your own superpower, what is it that John Donahoe saw in you or Ari Emanuel saw in you? Were they similar things, different things?
I think with, this is really just me speculating, but I think with John, I think John understood that I sat at the intersection of being really at the tip of the spear of understanding innovation, technology, where the world is going, how business models were evolving, new paradigms. But then I also was able to translate that into organizational, large scale thinking. And I think that that's an area where there's typically folks that are extraordinary, just understanding, the latest innovations in the ecosystem. And there's certain folks that are extraordinary at, really understanding enterprises and organizations. And I think John felt that I would be able to serve as that bridge. And that was something that for him as a very forward thinking CEO that was looking to bring a lot more innovation into the organization, a lot more entrepreneurship at scale. He identified that I could be a conduit for that. And so he really identified that fairly early on. And it was because of a set of risks that I took doing things that were, quite, I would say, innovative, but also extraordinarily unorthodox and unconventional in a large company, certainly a publicly traded company. And that is how we got to know each other, because he identified that and saw that there was some method in which I was working that was innovative, but also very in tune and respectful and deeply understanding how this massive organism worked and how to navigate. So you actually get the innovation to actually reach the customer. You actually get it out at scale. It's not a skunkworks thing. It's not, a little novelty thing that you show in a demo. It's something that we will actually roll out to hundreds of millions of customers. And I think that was John's insight. And I was very fortunate. John also took a risk on me where, I was 27 years old and John had identified me and he asked me to take a role reporting directly to him with very meaningful oversight and responsibility. And I think that speaks extraordinarily about his willingness to take risks.
When I think of you, I think of fierce calmness. That there is something about sitting with you, and I feel this sense of self-assurance, but I also see someone who has a point of view, but not arrogant. There's not arrogance in there. There's this fierce self-assurance that is confident without being arrogant. Where does that come from? And I felt that the first time I met you. It's like, wow, there was a fierceness here, and it's not fierce like I'm coming to attack you. It's fierce like, wow, I understand. Where does that come from?
Well, first of all, I appreciate the kind words. I think for me, um, I'll start with the calmness. So I always try to just think about what is my scorecard in life and what are the things that really matter to me. And so much of that is around my family and my wife and my children and my incredible friendships. And for me, that gives me this incredible base where I know that I have this, no matter what. And any interaction, whether it's a very kind of minor informal one or a very high stakes interaction, I know that at the end of the day, I have this and I will always have this. And that gives me a lot of peace. And the second part around the fierceness is I've always woken up every day, every single day, just with this explosive drive. Just every single day, what can I do today that can be as impactful as possible? And as I've also evolved in my career, a lot of it has been, how can I really supercharge and empower others? It used to be about, me as the builder, and then it's to empowering others. But I think a lot of that translates into a certain fierceness, also in the sense of, I view life as, and now we'll get philosophical for a moment, but I view life as a series of moments. And that's really what we have. Who knows, what awaits, for us in the afterlife. But I know that I have this moment with Sandy. It's such a privilege to be with a person that I respect and admire and learn so much from. And we have this moment together to be sharing some of the things that we have learned. And so I'm completely all in on this experience. And I am giving 150% of all of my focus, all of my senses for this present moment, because that's what our life is. And if you don't do it in those present moments and you're saving it for something else, what are you saving it for? This is it. Time is now. So I'm really all in on every moment. I would say in a firm like Endeavor, the talent level was extraordinarily high. It was just a different type of talent. So the talent was extremely adept at, for example, deal making and creating partnerships and finding ways to stitch things together. That was one thing that I thought was just really incredible. I mean, some of these, collaborations and partnerships were things that were wildly transformative and, nothing that I'd see in Silicon Valley, and certainly not at the same frequency and pace. And then the second at Endeavor is just, again, that pace. At Endeavor, the pace was extraordinarily fast. It was really, one of these that Ari, I think, does extraordinarily well is, among many things, is he has a certain set of priorities and he knows how to move each of those the tiniest bit every day. Every day he moves 200 things forward, just a tiny nudge, in many cases more, but at least a tiny nudge. And what ends up happening is you fast forward 6 months later and these things, compounded and snowballed. And 6 months later, you have 20 new large scale initiatives. And it is just mind blowing because if you were to look at it on a day by day basis, it was just these little nudges and just tenacity and discipline and follow through, which are things that Ari, has in spades. And, and it's in many cases hard to even get excited about those micro movements every day, but you see what that becomes. And so that was one of the big things that I took away from Endeavor is that you can actually move many things, tiny bit every day. And then, to contrast that with more of the kind of Silicon Valley, but I think Silicon Valley is a lot more big vision, much more disciplined strategy and strategic planning processes, much more of kind of a building, and design mentality. And Silicon Valley certainly says, iterate fast, break things. Absolutely. But I actually thought that the pace at Endeavor was meaningfully faster and juggling way more things. Very different businesses, but, and I think if you're able to take some of those, builder planning capabilities and this, extreme momentum, generating momentum is this really powerful thing. And that's a very unique thing that I learned in sports media entertainment and Endeavor in particular.